Hey everyone, Sumo Spiffy here. The final Basho of 2025 is over, and what an unbelievable finish. Aonishiki falls behind in the Yusho race, comes back, defeats Hoshoryu in a playoff. But then the JSA decides Onosato would have successfully fallen on him had he been healthy, and Aonishiki's getting his Ozeki promotion and can't take everything all at once, so they give Onosato the Yusho anyway. Incredible stuff! As for us fans basking in the glow of such glorious sumo, it's time to get set up for the new year by taking a first look at the next Banzuke. As always, we start with the math. Oh my god, this is gonna be terrible. Okay, as always, let's start at the top. And this time we're gonna start even farther up than usual. I will draw your attention to Makuuchi guess, 45 out of 42. That means there are 45 guys who mathematically earned a spot in Makuuchi. Either they were in the division and they didn't do poorly enough to drop out, or they were in Juryo and they did well enough to technically earn a spot up here. That means 3 guys who under normal circumstances would probably be in Makuuchi are gonna end up pretty disappointed, but we're gonna deal with that when we get further down the line. Hoshoryu, he got 12 wins, Onosato only got 11, so Hoshoryu, I'm using this terrible arrow to point out that he is going to move to Yokozuna 1 East. This is the kind of thing that I think we are not expecting to see too often, that usually Onosato will end up ahead of Hoshoryu, but hey, Onosato hurt his shoulder, and please stay out of the comments with any nonsense like, oh, he was just giving it away. He wasn't giving it away. I suppose maybe I'm a little biased because I'm having minor issues with the exact same joint that he's having issues with, and the idea of trying to do sumo with that kind of problem feels very, very bad. But anyway, Onosato 11 wins, Hoshoryu 12 wins, and the playoff loss. Hoshoryu will be Yokozuna 1 East, Onosato Yokozuna 1 West. Aonishiki definitely secured himself that Ozeki promotion with his Yusho. Going into January, he's still going to be behind Kotozakura because Kotozakura was at the rank, and when you're the new guy, you go at the end of the line. I think most of us are assuming it's not going to take long for Aonishiki to become Ozeki 1 East to Kotozakura's West, but for this one, he's gonna be in the West side. With Aonishiki going up from Sekiwake and Oho dropping out of Sekiwake, that leaves 2 Sekiwake slots to fill. Takeyasu coming back to get his 8-7 record means he should get one of them. Had Aonishiki not been promoted to Ozeki, there'd be kind of an open question as to whether this would be Kirishima or Takeyasu. I would go with Kirishima, but there's an argument either way. In this case though, there's really no reason to argue about it. Kirishima is a far better pick by the numbers. Being 11-4 at Maegashira 2 should be seen as much better than 8-7 at Komusubi 1 West, and since they're both going to get to Sekiwake, that means there's no reason not to put Kirishima at Sekiwake 1 East. Takeyasu can slot in nicely at 1 West, and we move along to where actual decisions need to be made. Okay, Oho, mathematically he's 7-8 at Sekiwake 1 West, so he drops to Komusubi 1 West, but chances are he's going to end up at 1 East because nobody else earned their way into the Sanyaku. That's simple enough. By the math, with Wakamoto Haru and Ura losing on the final day and Ichiyamamoto winning, Ichiyamamoto, in theory, has the best argument for that spot. Is he going to get it? No, he's not going to get it. That's going to go to Wakamoto Haru. Ichiyamamoto, I mean, we sort of saw it with Aonishiki when he was coming up from Maegashira 9, but in general, they're not going to elevate somebody from the mid-ranks over somebody who was in the Joy who has almost as good of an argument for taking a certain spot. Wakamoto Haru should end up at Komusubi 1 West, so now there's a question as to whether Ichiyamamoto will end up at Maegashira 1 East. He very well could, but coming up from those mid-ranks, it's not necessarily a given. But if we stick with the math, then we have Yoshino Fuji going to 1 West, and probably Wakataka Kage will be placed ahead of Ura, so that would put him at 2 East to Ura's 2 West. And that actually looks okay. The only thing that I think would be done differently is maybe Yoshino Fuji ahead of Ichiyamamoto. But with Yoshino Fuji at the absolute edge of the Joy, it's hard to say. That one's going to take some consideration. Just keep it in mind for your Guess the Banzuke entries. I suppose another possibility would be they want to bump Ichi Yamamoto back to 2 east, and then maybe you end up with Yoshino Fuji at 1 east, Ura at 1 west, and they bump Waka back the full rank to 2 west. This is possible. I suppose they could also do Ichi ahead of Ura like this. There's a lot of possibilities here. I'm going to go with kind of the more straightforward one. We're going to do math, Ichi Yamamoto, Yoshino Fuji. We're going to prefer the long-term Sanyaku guy in Waka Takakage, and then Ura. Hakuoho, he goes up to 3 east, Takanosho 3 west. Could they flip-flop because Takanosho was in the Sanyaku? Sure. A 1 rank difference mathematically means it's become sort of a coin flip. I think it might depend on how they felt about how these guys were fighting, but rank 3 is pretty much the same kind of schedule. You're going to catch all the Sanyaku hands just at different times. So we'll just leave these guys like that for now, but just keep in mind Hakuoho, Takanosho should both be at Maegashira 3 in one way or the other. Tamawashi's 7 and 8, and I know I moved him down too far. I totally goofballed that, but I fixed it. He should end up at 4 east, so not moving with his 7 and 8. Atami Fuji can slide up to 4 west. Daisho ends up at 5 east, nice and easy. Onokatsu can only go up to 6 west, so Churinaumi is an easy slot in at 5 west. So, you know, straightforward in these 4 and 5s. And now we've got Hiradaumi. Wait a second, Hiradaumi shouldn't be there. Hiradaumi should be down here. What am I doing? Okay, Fujinokawa should be the next guy up. Are they going to put Hiradaumi ahead of him? So, all right, let's slide Kinbozan up so he can't go past 8 west. Fujinokawa to 6 east is quite a jump. But if they were going to prefer Hiradaumi, he only goes down 3 ranks on his 4 and 11 record. Now, this is similar to Tobizaru and Ichi Yamamoto from the last Banzuke. If Tobizaru was given preference, he was going to go up 7 ranks on a 9 and 6 record, whereas Ichi Yamamoto, if he was given preference, would only go down 2.5 ranks on 4 and 11. This is like a less severe version of that. But Tobi and Ichi Yamamoto were only a half rank apart mathematically in that case, and this is a full rank. Is that going to matter? I'm not 100% sure. But Ichi won that head-to-head, so to speak, and I wonder if they're going to do the same thing here. Hiradaumi only going down 3 ranks. You know what? I don't think that's... I don't like it. I think that because Hiradaumi is not as close to Fujinokawa as Ichi was to Tobizaru, I think we're going to end up with Fuji ahead. This, I got to think about this one. This one is tough. It seems more correct. It seems like what they should do, but what they should do and what they do are not necessarily the same. So, I'm going to leave it like this. I'm going to leave Fuji ahead. That's where he should be. Again, something to consider for later. Gonoyama. So, Gonoyama versus Oshoma. Gonoyama would go up 5.5 ranks on 9 and 6. Oshoma would only drop 3 ranks on his 4 and 11, but he's a rank and a half behind Gonoyama. So I'm going to put him behind. There is no reason, and that doesn't mean it won't happen, but there is no reason why Fuji should end up ahead of Hiradaumi, but Oshoma should end up ahead of Gonoyama. These decisions should go the same way. The 4 and 11 guy should be ahead or behind in both cases. It shouldn't be one and then the other. I guess we'll see, but that's what should happen. Roga can bump up to 9 east, 2.5 ranks on his 8 and 7. That's pretty nice. Kota Shoho can only go up to 10 and west after his epic collapse, which means we have a couple more gaps to fill. Toki Hayate. Now that we've got the Joy guys out of the way, we can do this a little more straightforwardly. Toki Hayate up to 9 west with his 9 and 6. Okay, good for him. Midori Fuji only down 1 rank on 6 and 9. If they decide that that's not enough, they could bump Nishiki Fuji or Chiyoshoma ahead of him. I don't think they're going to do that though. I suppose they could put Shodai ahead of him, but Shodai was such an unmitigated, uncompetitive disaster that seems absolutely wrong. So I'm going to acknowledge that this is possible, but it shouldn't happen. It would be, oh god, that would just feel gross to watch. So we'll put Midori ahead there. We'll slide Shodai back to here. Nishiki Fuji and Chiyoshoma should take these next 2 spots. Since they tend to go with the winning records when you get down to this part of the division, that would put Chiyoshoma ahead of Nishiki Fuji. And now, Shodai to 12 East. Yeah, that seems about right. Tobizaru over Abi? Is Abi the one that gets over demoted here? He might very well be. It's got to happen to someone. And Asanoyama doesn't count. He's coming up from Juryo, so we'll deal with him in a minute. Tomokaze drops his exact 1 rank on 7 and 8. Shishi, his 3 on 6 and 9, Mitakeyumi, his 1 on 7 and 8, Ryuden, his 1 on 7 and 8. So we can actually slide down, and unless they're going to over-demote one of the Makuuchi guys for Asanoyama, really he's the only option. And they could, we're at that point in the division where it's not impossible, but I don't think it's going to happen. That would mean Asanoyama will come down to 15 West. Are they? Yeah, I think that's what's going to happen. Over-demoting for Juryo guys is not a thing that they tend to do. So that means Asahakuryu to 16 East, Hatsuyama to 16 West. Well, but Asakuryu's there. Are they going to put Asakuryu ahead of Asahakuryu? Oh my god, I gotta say both of those names all the time next to each other. They could do that, but let's just keep it simple. Asakuryu to 16 West, Hatsuyama probably to 17 West. They're probably not going to over-demote Oshiumi. If they're not going to over-demote the other guys, they shouldn't over-demote him. And this is where we get to the happy fun times of who gets screwed, because if you remember, or if you didn't know, now you will learn, now that the Sanyaku is bigger, now that there's 8 guys in it instead of 7, that Maegashira 18 slot vanishes. It's gone. So Kotoeho, I've been leaving him here, I just didn't move him, but he's actually behind all of these guys. The order is this, and there's no spot for any of them. So they all have to go back down. So we scroll down, and we're just going to have to plop them in place, but there's plenty of space for them. Fujiroga, in this case, bumping Fuji 1/2 rank back shouldn't be a big deal. So Daiseizan comes down to 2 East, Fuji Seiyun. Well, Fuji Seiyun should end up with that 1/2 rank increase to 1 East, and Kotoeho should go to 1 West. So this should be what Juryo looks like. Shirokuma goes up to 3 West. Does Sadanoumi bump ahead of Shirokuma or any of these other guys? He could. I don't see a reason to do it. Now, we might end up with Shonanoumi ahead of Takeru Fuji and Tamashoho. That's not as much of a jump. And especially since Tamashoho is coming up from basically the bottom of the division and Shonanoumi was in Makuuchi, that's pretty plausible. I'm going to put Tamashoho here at 5 West. Takeru Fuji and Shonanoumi, I think you could end up with these guys in either order. I'm going to leave Shonanoumi ahead of him. Kotokuzan, he bumps up. He just doesn't get demoted with his 7 and 8. Does Tochi Taikai go back to 6 West? I'm going to put Nishinoryu ahead of him. I don't know, just vibes. Also, we don't do Gets the Banzuke for Juryo, so if I'm wrong, I'm wrong. Asasuiryu, hey, nice 9 and 6. He goes up to 7 West. Well, Kaio can't go back to 8 East with 6 and 9. Then he's not demoted at all. There's not a chance in hell of that happening. What we might see in that case is Meisei sliding into that spot. He was injured. He didn't fight for most of the Basho. He came back. He tried to, he did his best. This is a good place to put him. Then do they put Kitano Waka or Kaio here? Oh my god. I haven't looked closely enough to see what they tend to do in these situations recently. They have been making sure the demotions are big enough in Juryo a little bit more. So yeah, I'm gonna put Kitano Waka there. I don't know if I like that. But Kitano Waka and Kaio should be 8 West and 9 East. Kazukeno, Tahakuryu, 9 West and 10 East. Tsurugisho cannot go above 11 West, so Hitoshi probably gets saved to 10 West. I mean, 9.5 ranks down is still pretty bad, but he was, God, what happened to that guy? Nishikigi gets a little bit of a save, 4.5 ranks down on 4 and 11. He goes to Juryo 11 East. Then, in keeping with the tendency to not put the Makushita promotees ahead of anyone from Juryo who's earned their place still in the division, we should end up with Wakano Sho going up to 12 East, Hidenoumi dropping to 12 West. Then we'll have Kyoku Kayu to 13 East, Dewa Noryu to 13 West, Hakuyozan. So if we scroll down a little bit, really it's going to be Hakuyozan or maybe Mita, but Mita is supposed to be out for the next tournament as well, so I don't see much reason for them to keep him in Juryo. Most likely we're going to have Hakuyozan go back up to Juryo 14. Does he go ahead of Kazuma or behind him? I'm going to put him ahead. I think if you win the Yusho at Makushita 15 West, that feels like they're just going to stick you at Juryo 14 West. It's just what's going to happen. But Hakuyozan and Kazuma could swap spots, but I'm going to leave it like this. That seems more correct to me. And that is the instant Banzuke going out of Kyushu 2025 into the new year of January 2026. There's a lot of head scratchers here, so by all means, leave your ideas in the comments. I am going to change a lot of this for the Guess the Banzuke entry, I'm pretty sure, and I would love to get your thoughts on the matter. Other than that, as always, the tier list recap is next. All I'll tell you is that me versus the community was pretty close. Will I get to keep my money or will I have to throw it at a charity? Let's find out in a few days. So look forward to that, have a great day, and I'll see you soon.